Hey everyone, this is Mike with Confused IT. In this video, I'm going to go over how to take a backup of your vCenter using the built-in backup feature of the vCenter appliance. It's a great way to take backups. It's been really great restoring with it. I've used it a couple times to restore vCenter, and it's been pretty much flawless. All the restores I've done have come back like 100%, no major issues. I can't say the same about other backup solutions I've used before, taking backups of vCenter and doing a restore from like I typically use Veeam for my home lab, and I think I had one or two instances there where I did a restore and it came back as like a half-baked, kind of, it thought that it was in the middle of an upgrade or it was in the middle of a new install type of thing, and I couldn't get it to go back right. So I know people that have done backups in vCenter, in Veeam and done restores, and they work great. And I've definitely had that experience also where it works great through Veeam, but I've also had instances where it didn't. So this method of using the actual vCenter backups through vCenter and restoring from them seems to work very well in all the cases that I've used it. So definitely recommend configuring it. It uses a good amount of space. Backup-wise, it definitely takes some bigger backups, but it's pretty easy to get rolling with it, getting it set up, and then having it run automatically. And just having it's super helpful. So I am running the newest version of vCenter at this moment, which is 7.0 update 3. That happens to be a problematic version, particularly with backups. So it's not the greatest example that I could give, but I wanted to cover it anyway. So I'm going to talk about what some of those issues are that I'm seeing with the newest version of vCenter, just so you're aware of why maybe I'm not using certain features or stuff like that. So the main issue that's on there right now is that SMB backups don't work. If you use SMB protocol, it does not work at all. It just throws this error. I spent like an hour troubleshooting it before Googling it, which is my first mistake. And it came up as saying that, it's a known issue. VMware is aware of it, and it's been in investigation since, October. So I'm hoping they have a fix in the next version, and I hope that next version comes out soon. It's currently broken though. So I switched over to NFS as an alternative, which I was hoping would work. And it does, but it initially failed. The health check for the database fails, which I don't know why. It comes up green in vCenter, shouldn't have any issues, but it broke. So I assume that's part of the just general backup issues that exist in the newest version of vCenter, but the process is the same since 6.7, exact same process between 6.7 and 7.0. I don't think there's any difference between them. So if you see this video, it really should be the same thing on older versions, and you shouldn't really have any issues. From 6.7 to 7.0. 6.5 is a different user interface, also pretty easy, but at least in this video you'll get the idea of the more newer versions of vCenter. So. All right, first thing to do is to go into the URL of your vCenter. So I'm going to do mine. At the end of it, I'm going to add the port for 5480. This is your appliance administration page or port. This is where you'll find a lot of the configuration for vCenter itself and sort of the reporting on the vCenter appliance itself. So I'm going to log in with the root account. You can use other logins. You can use the administrator at vSphere.local. You could use an SSO account if you have your domain set up. You can use a domain account. The only thing I noticed is that certain things don't show up when you don't use root, like certain features aren't there. For example, the only one that I remember offhand is that this password expires field isn't there. So if you're trying to change the setting and you don't see it, you have to be logged into root to see it. There may be other settings that are hidden when you're not using root, so that's why I just use the root account and stick with that, because it doesn't hide anything and there's full admin access and everything. So if I go to the summary page here, I can see that everything is green. I have no issues, at least none that are being reported by vCenter. The database is good, memory's good, it's all reports is good, everything's running. It's been up for 14 days, not a super long amount of time, not crazy. And we're going to go into the backup tab on the side here. And from here, this is my table of backups, which is super long. And this is just the backups I've taken on 7.0. I have probably 3 years worth or 2 years worth of backups on 6.7, which don't show in here. So there's 227 backups currently reported in this table. Some of them have failed, the more recent ones. But yeah, like I said, it's very reliable usually, except for this version of vCenter. So, and this table sorts in, I guess you'd say, reverse chronological order. It's backwards. It's the oldest to newest. So I don't know why you'd want that, especially when, there's 227 records in this table, and I only have the last 14 backups retained. So, like, why would you ever want to see the old backups? I mean, it's good for history, but, like, why would you want to see them first? I don't know. So I'm going to go here and just flip the end time. And there we go, January 15th of this year instead of, whatever it was, March of last year, I guess was the last one that was in there. And you can see I have some completed ones, just some testing. I have the errors, which these are all the DB health is unhealthy. And if you fail that check, instead of just warning you and taking the backup anyway, which it could totally do, it just says it's broken. It doesn't take a backup. So that to me is kind of stupid, but it is what it is. So it just says it's unhealthy, fails. Again, pretty sure it's only an issue on the latest version of vCenter. It's probably a false positive in my guess. I would imagine that these backups I just took with that DB check off are probably just as good as the ones with it, Otherwise, I think it's just as good as regular backups, because I don't think this is actually a real problem, considering that the summary page says everything is green. I think it's fine. And if I go back, I'm not going to go back too far, but I could probably go back a little bit and see. These are NFS. I wonder where my backups were that said that the SMB was bad. The SMB backups eventually went bad, and here, well, they're not in here anymore. So basically, I was getting the error that was in that KB I showed a minute ago. Yeah, so if you're on the newest version, you don't use SMB, use something else, which is what I'll show you right now. So up here in the top, we have a backup schedule. This shows us what's currently configured and if it's on or off. So I currently have a daily backup at 1:50 a.m. Eastern Time. It's going to an NFS share off my Synology. This is the data that I'm backing up, and then I have a 14-day retention, or 14 backup retention. So, which in this case is 14 days because it's a daily backup. But yeah, so I'm going to hit edit in the corner up here, and we'll see the backup schedule configuration. So in here we have the backup location, which is my NFS share off my Synology, which is NAS. NAS is a host name in my case, and then I just have the path to the actual backup. If I go to the eye icon here, we can see what protocols are supported. That supports FTPS, HTTPS, SFTP, FTP, NFS, SMB, and HTTP, which is a bunch. And if you go back to older versions of vCenter, like 6.7, and like the early versions of 6.7 and everything prior to that, I don't think they had SMB support, and I don't think they had NFS support. If I recall, those two were not there. They were added towards the end of 6.7, towards the later versions of 6.7. So I really didn't use it back then because I didn't really feel like setting up an SFTP share or an FTP share or anything like that to try and do these backups. When they added SMB support, it was really easy. I just kind of threw it in there, made a share on my Synology, and it works great. Or at least it did up until this newer version. So I was just using NFS or SMB. It's very easy. Basically, you just put in your protocol here. You have the colon, then you have your UNC address or your path for your storage. So again, host name and then your storage location. If you're using SMB and it's authenticated, or you're using anything else that was authenticated, you put your username and password here. Pretty straightforward. In your schedule, this time is based off of your vCenter time. So yeah, vCenter server time. You can configure a daily, a weekly, or a custom, which you can do multiple days a week. And I usually do the daily at 1:50 a.m. You can set a password if you wanted to encrypt your backups. I haven't done that because, well, I don't really need them encrypted. Here is the DB health check, which basically says it takes longer if you use this option. It helps determine the status of your database. Like I said before, on the newest version of vCenter, it's been a problem for me. It's been throwing what I believe to be false positives. So normally I would recommend having this on. It was definitely I'd imagine to be a very helpful feature and good to know if your databases are having issues. Sorry, if your database is having difficulty backing up or if there's problems with it, it's good to know that when you're taking backups. However, it will not take a backup right now if I have this on, even though everything shows green in the vCenter. I've tried rebooting. It just seems to be a bug in this version. So I would turn it on, but I'm going to turn it off just in my use case with this new buggy version of vCenter. So then you could choose what backups, how many backups you want to retain. So you could do all the backups, which could be a lot. I'm not going to lie. These are pretty sizable backups, so I would suggest just keeping a certain amount of them. I did 14, which seems like a lot. I'd probably, I mean, 7, 14, how many, do you really want to keep? So choose the one you want to keep there. I put 14 because I don't know. I think it defaults. Maybe it defaults to that. And it seemed like a good idea. So I did that. And then the data, you have an option of what data you want to store. So obviously you have to back up something. In this case, the most important thing is your inventory and configuration. Kind of important piece there. But stats, events, and tasks are optional. So you can turn those on and off if you wanted to. I turned them on because, I don't know, it's kind of neat to see historical data on what happened and, what tasks went on and the stats and everything. So that's that. You would hit save here, and then it would just confirm and store that in your schedule. Also, I think in here, if it's not already configured, it says configure here instead of edit, which I think there's actually a knowledge base article from VMware on this. Let's take a quick look here. Yeah, so in this case, it would say configure in the corner if it's not configured yet. So you hit configure, you fill out the exact same settings, and you move on. So that's basically what happens. I'll do a manual backup now just so you can see what that looks like. But basically from now on, in my case, at 1:50 a.m., it'll take backups to my NAS, which has a share for the vCenter backups. One thing to note also is that you don't have to you don't have to make a folder for vCenter. It will make a folder for you. So as you can see in my last backup, I have a double vCenter folder because I didn't know that. And when I put that folder in there, all of a sudden I had 2 of them. So definitely don't have to do that. It'll make its own folder for vCenter, just an FYI. And so manual backup here. We got a backup now in the corner. We're going to hit and use the backup location and username from the backup schedule. It's pretty convenient, but it basically only pulls in these 2 fields, I think. The location and the username, not the password, I don't think anything else. So, but still, it's easier to do that than type in this path again. Same settings as before. The only thing missing is the schedule, and the only thing you gain is this description field. If you want to put a description in, you can say this is before you upgrade to the next version of vCenter or whatever you want to put in there. I'm going to leave the health check disabled because it's not going to work for me, particularly with this latest version of vCenter if it's on. And you'll notice that the start button is grayed out, and that bug, I don't know if you can call it a bug, but the resolution here is to click in the backup location field and then click out of it, and it will show a start. So I'll hit that, and now it'll take a backup. The next thing it's going to do is going to go from 0 to 95% very quickly, and it's going to sit at 95% for 3.5 minutes. It's kind of another weird thing. I don't know if it just takes if it's very quick to maybe zip it, and then it just takes time to transfer over the network, but I don't know, it's a 10 gig network with, an array of cached 7200 RPM drives, so I mean, it should be pretty quick, you would think, but at 95%, it just hangs there for 3.5 minutes. That's pretty normal. For me, at least, I assume it's normal for everybody else, too. The most ones I've seen seem to have done the same thing, but yeah, that's pretty much how that works. I'll go over, what else can I go over in the meantime? So one other important note while this is doing its thing is that the backup, if you need to restore, you have to restore using the exact same version of vCenter that your backup is from. So if I'm taking a backup and it is a 7.0 U3A backup, I have to, if I was going to do a restore, I have to install a fresh copy of 7.0 U3A to do the restore. Otherwise, it will not be compatible, and it won't take the backup file. So And that same warning is right here. The restore process requires that both the installer and backup versions are identical. So that's kind of a typical VMware thing. A little annoying, but it makes sense. There are changes, I guess, between versions, and if you try and restore the wrong backup, it could potentially have an issue where something didn't get upgraded along the way or something. I don't know. So you have to do that. Something to keep in mind. Yeah, and these backups, like I said, these seem to be much more reliable, or I wouldn't say much more reliable, but they're very reliable usually. I have 227 backups, 28 now, and with 7.0, 98% of them were all successful. On 6.7, I had probably 600 or something, maybe even more, because I had it for several years. Before I upgraded to 7.0, and they were all, successful. I don't think I really ever had a bad backup, or even a failed backup for that matter. And I restored a couple times, not in my infrastructure, but in somebody else's, and it was very smooth to be able to take that backup and, just follow the restore process. It was just a really, I don't want to say satisfying, because I think when you're restoring something, it's always kind of frustrating, but it definitely worked, and there was no bugs, which I really, knock on wood, I appreciated. Compared to, I've done some backups with Veeam and some snapshot-based backups, which, they usually work, but I did have an instance once or twice where something went wrong, and basically when I went to go do the restore, I finished restoring it, and it came back up as like the vCenter wasn't quite installed yet, and it was like half-baked. So this seems to always work generally, unless there's a major issue, it usually seems to always work for me. So I definitely recommend setting them up. It's pretty easy. Once it's set up, it just works until there's a bug, like they break SMB, and then I have to change it, but beyond that, it works fine. So I just completed here. And again, I don't know why it does this, but it shows the latest backup, which is the one that just happened, and the next backup in this list is from 2021, so last year. But this is from this, so I don't know what it's sorting by. I'm like always kind of confused on why that does that. But if I just sort again, you'll see this is the last backup I did. It was a manual backup. Scheduled backups will say scheduled, manual will say manual. Pretty straightforward. The size, the duration, where it went. This is a folder you can go into on your storage, and you can see them all nicely contained in there. I think you can delete ones you don't need if you wanted to clean it up a little bit or save some storage. But yeah, beyond that, I mean, it's a really great process. There is no impact from my experience on vCenter. I think even in their guide here on how to use all of the different methods in this backup solution, it doesn't have any type of impact. I think it says that somewhere in here. It's like, one of the great things about this is that there's really no, QSing of the file system. There's no downtime. It just takes a backup, and there's really no downside to taking that backup. So besides using storage, that's about it. But yeah, that's how you take a backup in vCenter. So hopefully that was helpful for you. Hopefully you never need to restore vCenter. Hopefully everything just works for you. And if you do have to restore, hopefully you have a good backup. And I wish you luck with that. And we'll have a write-up of this in our knowledge base at kb.confusedit.org. And we'll also link to their article on how to do the backups in 6.5 and 6.7. And they have some nice screenshots in here that you can see. And we'll also link this article also, which covers how to do the restore process using that backup. So yeah, hopefully this was helpful for you, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Our website has some resources that you might find useful as well. Confused IT is a non-for-profit organization ran by IT professionals. Our mission is to make IT knowledge more accessible and easier to digest. Thanks for watching.